What's up, people? We are live. It is Monday night. I think I lose track of the days. New camera setup, so I look like I'm engaging with you even less in the setup. But I don't know. I kind of like it. um, but yeah, it's Monday night. I think. I don't know what it's like for you guys, but this time of the year, like between Christmas and New Year, I have just totally lost track of the days. It could be like Monday, it could be Sunday, it could be like Thursday. I've got no idea. Um, I'm just like completely lost, completely confused. I think things get back to normal probably tomorrow, maybe Thursday. Once we get the new year become gets underway properly, because it's a bank holiday in the UK, which I don't know what you call it in America. Do you call it bank holiday? Probably not. You could maybe call it. What do you call your days which aren't work days? Labor days, is it, or something like that? So um, because New Year's Day was on a Sunday, the Monday became a what we call a bank holiday. So it's not a day where you have to work. Well, not unless in certain professions. Um, but yeah, so yeah, the days between like Christmas Eve and the beginning of January are just a blur. Yeah, Labor Day. Okay, thank you, Jess. Yeah, it's Labor Day. Okay. Got Sean in the chat. What's up, Sean? We've got Jamie in the chat as well. What's up, Jamie? We've got Dan as well. What's up, Dan? I think that's it for now. Hopefully, a few more people jump on board forthwith, hopefully. Oh, yeah, I've got steak sauce in the chat as well. What's up, steak sauce? We just call it observance. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, nobody fucking knows what day it is at this time of the year. Like it's just from, yeah, like I say, from like the Christmas Eve to like this day, maybe it's just one big blur, and then it starts to make more sense. I mean, I'm still kind of, until the Christmas decorations come down. As far as I'm concerned, it's still the holiday season. I know some people take them down early. I think you're meant to take them down on is it the 4th or the 6th of January? Otherwise, it's bad luck. I can never remember. And I know it's considered bad luck to take them down before a certain date. But yeah, I always feel a bit depressed when it gets around to, to the end of there's a day in January. It's it's like I don't, it's sometime in the middle of January or towards the beginning. It's regarded as the most depressing day of the year because Christmas is gone, New Year's done, and then you just got like another year of just like grinding the shit out of the year, and it's just like, the weather's terrible if you live in the northern hemisphere. Anyway, people in Australia, they're fine, but yeah, if you live in the northern hemisphere, weather's shit. Christmas is done, and what have we got to look forward to apart from maybe some new horror films, which is the purpose of this stream tonight. Well, amongst other things, obviously. Yeah, so basically, the whole purpose of this stream is to take a look forward to 2023, some of the new stuff dropping down the line, maybe take a look back at 2022 if I get time, because yeah, there's a lot of 2022 was a great year for horror movies. I'm not gonna lie, it was. I mean, the whole doing this stream the other night with JT and Alexei, just delving back into 2022's best of, that it made me realize what a great year that was for like horror movies in 2022. And 2023 shaping up. I mean, we obviously we don't know. They could all be complete dog shit. But there's some dropping over the next 12 months which look promising. Some that look less than promising. And I just want to use the stream as an opportunity to like shine a light on some of these releases. Because I mean, I'll be honest, some of the films that are dropping over the next 12 months, I don't know that much about. And hopefully the chat maybe know more than I do. Certainly with a couple of releases, because a couple of the franchises where a new movie's dropping, I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm sort of curious to know what they're going to do with it. But we'll just jump back into chat briefly, and then we'll start properly. Jamie says if a holiday falls on the weekend, they always take the following Monday off. Calendar will say something like New Year's observed. Okay. We got Savoy. What's up, Savoy? Evening all from Newcastle under Lyme from Staffordshire country. Unless I'm not mistaken, Staffordshire. Is Newcastle under Lyme Staffordshire or is it Derbyshire? I always get confused. Sean says, I was about to horror. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if Dune 2, Dune, I can never pronounce Dune. It's just Dune or Dune. I don't. And if Dune 2 drops this year, I'll be a happy guy because the first movie, not the 84 version. No, obviously, I've not seen it. It looks shit. Apologies to anyone who likes the original Dune film, but the remake from a couple of years ago, I thought was a masterpiece. I'm really looking forward to it. Whether it'll drop this year, I think it's unlikely to be. I mean, maybe it's down to drop this year, but I just can't see it. Yeah. Okay. So Staffordshire, right near Stoke. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I knew it was either Staffordshire or Derbyshire. Right near Stoke. Yeah. Home of two of my favourite like sports personalities. Phil Taylor, the darts. This will mean nothing to American audiences, but Phil Taylor, the darts player, the greatest darts player who ever lived, and Eddie Hall, of course, one of the greatest strongmen who's ever lived. About this year, okay, that seems. I mean, 2019 was the last movie. I think. I just, I hope it is. I hope it's not rushed though. I hope it's like it's ready to go, and they haven't rushed the whole release. What's up, Lauren? Lauren's in the chat as well. I am currently through chapter 1 of the book. Loving it so far. And I don't mean that as like a, oh, I'm a friend. I'm just being like, I've been trying to like, people don't. If anybody's watched the Wheel of Time TV series, which is like based on a 14 book epic fantasy series which spans 30 years, I've been trying to plow my way through that for the last 3 years, and it's at its high points, it's at its low points, and I'm in the final book, and I've been on the final book. It's a long book; it's like 1,000 pages long, but I've been on this book for like a good like year, and I just cannot get through it. It's just painfully difficult for me to get through it, and this is a book. That's the final book in a series written by two authors because the first original author died. A second author took it on, who was a multi-million book-selling author. But I'm struggling to get through it because it's a struggle. And when you're struggling to get, it's a bit like watching a bad movie. If I watch a really bad film and I struggle to get through it, and an hour feels like 3 hours, it puts me off watching another film like straight away. It really does. I mean, I watched numerous bad movies over the last like 3 or 4 weeks, and watching a really bad film, it does put me in the mindset of I just cannot be bothered dedicate myself to another 90 minutes or 2 hours of a film which is I'm not going to really be on board with. But watching a really good film where the 2 hours feels like 45 minutes, you just want to immediately watch another good film. It's a bit like that with books. So I've been reading Lorne's book. I think I'm at the end of chapter 2. Yeah, I think at the end of chapter 2. It's hard because it says chapter 0. Yeah, chapter 2. Although it's actually chapter 3. But I've been so out of the loop of like watching a page turner because reading a page turner because I've been stuck in this Wheel of Time 14 book marathon for so long. I've not really read anything else for the longest time. So when Lorne dropped his book, I went and bought it, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to get this read quickly because I want to be, because everybody else is going to be reading the book in the community. So I don't want to be getting spoiled stuff. I don't want to be out the loop. But so yeah, I've been reading it, and the good thing, what I can't say enough about reading physical books as well, which I have fell out of fashion with a little bit because it's just convenience. I have been, downloading ebooks a lot in the last few years, but because I've obviously Lorne is a friend of the show and a friend, on in general, and just a fan of it. I've just fan of everything he does. I wanted to, support him properly and, buy the book physically. And, it's good to come back to like reading the book physically, because reading a book on an e-reader or on your phone or a tablet, you're constantly getting distracted by notifications and whatnot. And it's very easy to just get distracted and just tap a button, come out the book and go into a different app. If you physically reading a physical book, which, like I say, I've not done for a few years, and I need to get back into it, is you can just lock yourself off, turn your phone off, open the book and read, and have no distractions. And I find myself, it's very, very rare that I've actually gone and read 100 pages of a book in like 4 or 5 days, which is pretty much what I've done with Lorne's book. Most of the time when I read books now, if it is on a Kindle or whatever they want to call it, I get with like 15, 20 pages in, I get distracted, I get sidetracked by a notification, and then I don't come back to it for like 2 days. But so there's a lot to be said. I mean, we all know the physical media is better than, virtual reality media. The ebooks, Kindles, whatever you want to call them, they are extremely handy when it comes to like, if you're going on holiday or vacation, what you want to call it. It's a lot easier to just put your phone in your pocket and take, 1,000 books with you, rather than, you know, baggage allowance on an airplane isn't going to allow for 1,000 novels, but it does take you away from, it does take you out of this situation sometimes. If you're constantly getting distracted by notifications on your phone or whatever you're watching it on, reading it on, then you just, there's no replacement for physical media in book terms. And I've always said that I think that books will always be the last to go, and I think books will always survive because books have got. Look at if you look at physical media, vinyl's been around since what, the 1950s, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. 40s, 50s, CDs since the 80s. Anything else, Blu-ray wise, DVD wise, 90s, 2000s. They'll go long before books because books have been around for centuries. So the first to be I would say invented, the first to come into public consciousness, I suppose, will be the last to go, and books will always be around. There's just no way. It's as simple as that. And if anything, I think they seem to be gaining. Are they not actually regaining popularity? Against the odds, they're actually becoming more popular now than they ever were. Maybe not they ever were, but there's actually a turning of the tide in regards to people downloading books and people buying physical books. I hope so. I really do. But anyway, let's get onto the subject at hand, because I have just gone a bit of a rambling discussion about books. But let's just go back into the chat. Savoy says Eddie Hull went to my mate's video shop once. That's like the most English thing ever. And also, Sean says, trying to find a cinema here in Ireland that is showing The Whale. I don't know anywhere that's showing The Whale. Maybe, I mean, maybe like some of them are art housey ones. The Whale is great. It'll get more showings during Oscar season. Savoy says, I have hardly read any books and I'm nearly 50. I think Dan's put a link to the Salone's book there. It's great so far. I agree. Lorne says Lorna's a friend in general of generals like mentions that sort. um, and Lorne also says, I really appreciate this support, folks. It was my cold, dead heart. Well, yeah, I know it was going to be a cold, dead heart. It wasn't going to be a warm, loving heart, was it? Okay, so let's move on to the subject at hand, which was basically the thumbnail in general for the stream tonight, and that's like looking forward. I'm trying to look. Maybe I might try and look back at like some of the high points of 2022 if I can, time permitting. But looking forward to 2023. In the chat, let me know what you're looking forward to. I've handpicked a few, which I think obviously are going to be the big releases of the year. The first one is dropping August 4th, and a film I loved the original film, and it did well enough at the box office to get a sequel, and that's the Meg 2. I think it's called the Trench. Is it? Jason Statham's returning. Loved the first film. Really, really had a fun time with it. But nobody ever seems to talk about this film. It came, it went, and I don't really understand why. It doesn't really seem to have gained any sort of traction in the following 4 years. I don't know if like COVID had anything to do with that. Maybe it just dropped at the wrong time, but I had a really good time with this film, and I'm glad to see it's getting a sequel. It's not like a work of art. It's not. We're not when it comes to like shark movies. We're not talking Jaws levels, but we're certainly not talking. You know, we're talking a lot better than like Shark Night or some shit like that, or some like nonsense from Sharknado movie. Oh, we've got Piz in the chat as well. I support Lon's rating, but refuses to support my erotic Halloween fan fiction. Oh well, that's a crying shame, Piz, because that definitely needs some more support. Sean says Jason Statham can't act. He doesn't need to act. He just needs to be Jason Statham. Jason Statham could never act. I mean, Jason Statham is Jason Statham. I like what he does. I mean, Jason Statham is simply there to act. I mean, he's getting a bit old now, so I don't know how much longer he can carry this on for. But if he can just take his top off and still have a six pack and just mumble and grunt through like X amount of scenes and let the rest of the cast do the hard work, I'm down for that. But yeah, and Sean does not like the Meg. Okay, Sean. I mean, I had a good time with it. I mean, I much preferred the Meg over Deep. I never liked Deep Blue Sea. I know the Meg is a bit of a rip-off of Deep Blue Sea, but I always preferred the Meg. Deep Blue Sea was not my thing really, but Ben Wheatley is a director. I mean, my God, Ben Wheatley, Piz will know Kill List because I recommended it from on his channel. Ben Wheatley directed Kill List. Kill List is gruesome as hell. It is violent as hell. It's some of the most uncomfortable, violent sequences you'll get on cinema. And this guy is directing the Meg 2. So I'm curious as to what. Obviously, it's going to be a 12A UK rated R movie in the US, I'm guessing. I'm not quite sure how it works, correlates in the US to the UK. I think it was a 12A in the UK. It could have been a 15. I'm not sure. It's probably going to correlate to a 15 or rated R in the US. But Ben Wheatley on board to direct, who directed A Field in England as well, which is just a mind trip of a movie. A lot of drugs, a lot of one of the most disturbing scenes you'll ever see on a movie screen. And he also did Kill List. The fact that this guy's doing the Meg 2 has got me curious, to say the least. So I'm on board for this. I'm definitely hyped to this. If we go down like a super violent route for this film, which is not going to happen, unfortunately, but it would be interesting. Yeah, definitely. Piers says I like the Meg, and I'm looking forward to the sequel. Mike wants Stephen to take a stop off. You hit. Look. I'm comfortable with my sexuality. I'm a 46-year-old straight white male, but Jason Statham, if he wants to show his guns off, I'm all for that. It's 2023. We need to get back to men showing off the guns because let's face it, 2022 and everything that's gone before in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had a lack of that. We need to get back to this sort of like late 80s ultra macho sort of aesthetic in movies. I want more Arnie and less. Well, who can less the Flash, whoever that guy is, the one who attacks women. Less of him, more of Arnie. Not obviously the Arnie, just a new version. Piers says, I was surprised. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Ben Wheatley is not like your typical Hollywood normie director. Certainly, the shit he's done is really it just doesn't really fit with this film. But that's what makes me definitely curious to check this out. Live stream can show off the console. So yeah, I mean there's Meg 2. I'm definitely curious for that one. In terms of next up, we've got obviously this is the big one for like the first few months of the year. I know it's being talked about a lot, and I know Lord Piz says, have you seen Bull? Piz, it's in my top 10 movies of 2022. I talked about it in the live stream a couple of days ago. I think it's like my number 4 movie. If you've seen it, Piz, well, let me know what you think. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Because if you like Kill List, if you like Dead Man's Shoes, this film's fucking insane. Again, definitely put subtitles on because you probably won't understand the word of it because it's very, very strong English dialect. But yeah, Bull is a fantastic film. I highly recommend it. If you like violence in a non-comedic way, I'm not talking like Terrifier 2 nonsense. If you just want to see a man's hand get chopped off right in front of you, this is the film for you. It's definitely an experience. I wouldn't say it's on par with yeah. Oh, you watched it last night, Piers? Yeah, definitely. I didn't know anything about this film. I literally found out about this film through just some random Facebook advert, and as soon as I saw Neil Maskell's name mentioned, I was just thinking, oh yeah, Neil Maskell's a fucking genius. He lives that character. But yeah, Bull is a fantastic movie. If anybody's ever and for American audiences, British audiences will probably know this TV show. A TV show from around about 2013, 2012 called Utopia, which stars Neil Maskell from Bull and Kill List. Utopia is probably one of the most underappreciated TV shows in British TV history. It's a work of art. Especially if you're in the States, you probably have no idea what this TV show is. It's absolutely incredible. Utopia, 2012 or 2013, I think. Neil Maskell is the male lead in it. It's amazing. You got to check this. You got to check this TV show out. I don't know where you'd watch it. I really have no idea. I don't even know where you can watch it in the UK. I think there is a DVD of it, but it won't be on YouTube because it was Channel 4 of the company behind it, and they are very, very ruthless when it comes to YouTube. They take down everything within like hours, probably. So yeah, there's probably a DVD. But yeah, Utopia from 2012 or around about the time it's essential TV for anyone who's a fan of like. I mean, I don't really want to describe too much about it because it's one of those. It's the more you explain, the more you ruin it. So I'll just leave it at that. Um, Lorne says, I enjoyed the Meg for what it was. It's not great cinema, but it was kinetic and painless. I'm no Steve Alton fan, but the film was fine. It was kind of like it reminded me like it was like a throwback to like an old school action movie where there was everybody was kind of like a nice. And I've said this before about like it kind of like there were no like really like dickish. There was maybe like one or two like a little bit dickish, but majority of the cast were like honest, genuine people who just wanted to deal with the situation and get through the day. But there was none of this. A lot of like modern movies now, there's just like a lot of infighting and a lot of like people who are just absolutely horrible, horrible, horrible people. And it just kind of bypassed all that. And it was a feel good movie. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I say, great time with that film, and hopefully, the Meg 2 is equally as good, if not maybe a little bit darker with the Ben Wheatley influence. But um, yeah, the cottage as well. Yeah, the cottage. I know Lauren loves the cottage. The cottage featuring um, Jennifer Ellison, who is from my neck of the woods, from Liverpool. Yeah, she's great in that film as well. She's just like the proper like entitled blonde bitch, but who's also like the heroine. Um, yeah, the cottage is a great movie. Um, there was a real good run in the sort of like late noughties to early 2000s and tens, I should say. There was a really good run of like horror slash comedies coming from the UK. Whether it was from, obviously Edgar Wright, with the bigger budget, or some smaller budget movies. I mean, you had like Severance, Doghouse, The Cottage. There's a couple of others which escaped me attention. There was a real glut of like, quality, so like horror comedy and darker horror comedy movies coming out of the UK at that time. Um, yeah, it seems to have dried up a little bit in the last few years, but maybe COVID's played a role in that. But um, okay, let's get into it. Let's get into it. The next movie up is Scream 6, obviously. Releasing, it's coming March the 10th, I believe. Obviously, Jenna Ortega, the current it girl of like Hollywood and whatnot, and you've got Courtney Cox coming back. Is this the final Scream movie? I mean, what do you guys think? I cannot. I don't think there's any comeback from this film. I think this is the final movie, and then we're going to get what reboots maybe in a few years' time. This has been an unbroken sequence of films for 27 years now, since the 96 original. Um, I don't know where they're going to go. It's a New York setting. They've just dropped a new movie poster with like the New York subway map, I think, with the outline of Ghostface face. Um, how it's going to translate into New York, I don't know, because like obviously, they're going to move it to Manhattan. Um, you know, city of like what 9 million people. Where are they going to move to give it that small feeling of like I mean, where's the feeling of threat if it's going to? I mean, okay, we've all seen plenty of slasher films set in New York. I get that. I mean, Maniac Cop. I rewatched the first two Maniac Cop films the other day, and okay, they just basically get around that by making Manhattan or Brooklyn, whatever it was set, deserted, which is a bit unrealistic considering it's a city of 9-10 million people. But um, I don't know how they're going to go about getting that feeling of like insecurity and like being alone when where they're going to take where's the movie going to take where they're going to take it to for its final act or the second act. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I personally would prefer it a more of a small town setting for the Scream movies. I've always preferred Scream movies with the small town setting. I think that's what it does best. I mean, we all remember what happened to the Friday the 13th franchise when they went to Manhattan. Come on, as much as I love Part 8, it's come on, it's are they going to go down the route of like Jason Takes Manhattan, where there's literally going to be walking down Times Square and Ghostface is going to be chasing them, and he's not interested in anybody else apart from like the final girl. So it's just like, and they can't escape. You know, the most ridiculous thing about Jason Takes Manhattan, they get to Manhattan. Okay, the first three quarters of the film took part in Canada, but there is some small part set in Manhattan, and they get to New York, and somehow they don't escape Jason. It's Times Square. You know what? 9 o'clock at night. It's there's thousands of people around, and they can't escape Jason. I mean, just get in a taxi and just drive. Okay, take me to JFK Airport, please. You know what I mean? It's like, what's Jason gonna do? It's so fucking ridiculous. And I know I'm going off on a tangent about Jason Takes Manhattan, which I love, by the way. Um, but you know, it's is Scream going to go down that route of like, you know, I just don't know where they're going to go with this film. But yeah, I mean, is a reboot on the cards? Or oh, sorry. So is that confirmed? Scream 7 is already planned. Gee, I mean, really? I mean, they have they don't even know what the box office figures are going to be for part 6 yet. I mean, that seems my god, I wouldn't surprise me, but Jesus Christ, man, Scream 7 confirmed already. I mean, this is probably it's. I don't know, man. Savoy says the fact it's like a remake of Jason St. Manhattan is awesome. I love that film. Yeah. Lorne's just rolling his eyes now in the chat. this love for Jason Takes Manhattan. James says they have a Scream 7 plans. Yeah, my God, that's totally escaped my attention. I had no idea that Scream 7 was planned. Big Chris is in the chat. What's up, Chris? Yeah, Scream in Space or Ghostface in the Hood. Yeah, when you jump the shark, you either go into space or you go to the hood. So yeah, we can expect to see Ghostface either in space or he's in like Compton or somewhere. I mean, I don't know. Scream kills or Scream ends. Sean says, be interesting if this as well, considering fans were not happy about Neve Campbell not being in it. I mean, let's face it. Neve Campbell will probably see how well this does at the box office, and then make a decision based on the box office takings. And if it does well, they can probably expect a phone call off her agent. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so I think we've covered all bases of Scream 6. Next up, The Exorcist. And this is dropping in October, 13th of October. The Exorcist, this direct sequel to the 73 Exorcist, a sequel that nobody asked for, nobody wanted, as far as I'm aware. Certainly not the old school fans of The Exorcist. Says I'm more concerned about the story than location. They really need to do something different, out of the ordinary here. Yeah, and let's face it, Scream aren't really known for that. Sean says The Exorcist 3 is the true sequel. Yeah, so let's just jump into The Exorcist. So this is a sequel, a direct sequel to 1. So if this is a direct sequel to 1 and it's taken place in 2023, which would lead me to believe there probably is, because it's 50 years since the original film. I mean, I could be wrong. I've not looked into this at all. I'm trying not to look. I'm trying to do a job of being aware of upcoming releases without spoiling too much for myself. But obviously, doing a YouTube channel, you kind of want to be up to date with like what is going on with them. But with something like The Exorcist, I've not really seen much of it so far, but I'm guessing with it being the 50th anniversary, this is going to be a direct sequel and it's going to be set modern day. It wouldn't really make much sense with the 50-year time gap to do a sequel and set it maybe in the 80s or the 90s. I'm just gonna assume that this is going to be set in 2023. But again, a 50-year time jump from like one of the, not in my opinion, but I understand the impact of the movie, one of the greatest horror films of all time. I do like the film, don't get me wrong, but it's just, I'm not a big fan of religious horror. But yeah, the 50-year time jump is obviously, it does feel like a cash in. if that is the case. And even if it's not set in 2023, I still feel like it's a cash in because it's the 50th anniversary of Exorcist 3, of the original Exorcist. I'd be curious to know actually at what date the original movie dropped in 73, and did it drop roughly the same time as what this movie's going to drop? Um, but I'm curious to know is like exactly as to who is this film going to appeal to? Because I honestly don't think the Gen Zs and millennials are going to give a shit about this film. Let's face it, millennials were born from like I mean, this film came out before I was born, and I'm Gen X. You know, this is an old film, and it was before even I was born. So the Gen Zs are too young to even remember Exorcist 3. Millennials are probably too young to remember Exorcist 3, really, unless they've watched it, down the line. So I'm a bit curious as to like this film, who's it going to appeal to? What sort of budget it's got? Like what is the expected returns on the film? Because I would definitely say you're going to have to get some like good marketing people in to push this film, because I honestly, it's dropping in October, obviously. So obviously, an October release, it's better than dropping it in January, I suppose. But there could be more competition come that time. I don't know. I mean, October can be a busy schedule for horror movies. I know Saw 10 is dropping a couple of weeks later, so they've escaped that bullet because Saw 10 gains a bit of like traction going forward. That could be a big hit in terms of like Halloween sales. But honestly, I've just no idea who this movie's aimed at, and they're in a no-win situation because there's no way this film can be better than the original. There's very little chance it can be better than Exorcist 3. All they can really hope for is it's better than the second one, which is probably extremely easy because the second one is terrible. But I don't honestly know. I really, really think this is a strange choice for a remake. Um, I don't know who's remaking the film, by the way. So in the chat, if anybody knows who's the um oh, it's is it David Gordon Green who's directing this? It is David Gordon Green, isn't it? It is, yeah, it's David Gordon Green. So David Gordon Green could be responsible for destroying two beloved franchises in the space of 4 years. That would be some achievement. My God. So David Gordon Green, who destroyed the Halloween franchise, could destroy. Well, he's not going to just destroy the Exorcist franchise because nobody's going to like really, because they can call it a sequel to the original, but nobody's going to believe it. In the same way that I don't regard this new trilogy by him as the sequels to the original 78 movie. For me, there's when it comes to universes in the Halloween franchise, for me, it's always going to be 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. That's just my go-to. But his idea of the universe, 2018 kills ends. That's no. I'd much rather go 1, 2, H2O than that one. So yeah, but he could really, really fuck up The Exorcist as well. But hopefully he does a good job. But I don't know. I'm not holding out any hope. Big Chris says 2x, 2x or 2. I can't even pronounce that. 2x or 2 cyst. Sean says definitely one of the greats, indeed. Ben says somebody in a clown mask killing takes over the last screen. Lorne says my theory is that they'll visit the Museum of Modern Art and there will be an Edward Munch exhibit. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting take. Dan says they also just had the damn TV show called Easy. I never watched that. The Exorcist Return of Corey. So what we got next? We've got Knock at the Cabin, which is dropping on February the 3rd. This is the new entry by M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about this movie. If anybody in the chat knows more than I do, it's based on a novel from, I believe 5 or 6 years ago, or was it 25 to 26 years ago? I'm not entirely sure, but M. Night Shyamalan needs a hit for me. His career's just been on a downward spiral since Signs, in my opinion. Split was a rare uptake in what you'd call good storytelling and good directing, and then he just went downhill immediately with Glass. And Old was just one of those. It's Old is one of those movies that is so bad it's good almost. I mean, it's not. It's technically it's proficient. The cinematography is okay. It's the acting and the dialogue. If M. Night Shyamalan could just bring in somebody I mean, is M. Night Shyamalan, doesn't he write the movie? Doesn't he write everything himself? Doesn't he produce everything himself and direct it? He's a bit like Tarantino. So is all the dialogue him? Because if he's responsible for the dialogue in Old, he really needs to look at bringing somebody in to sort that out, because there's a line in Old where the dog on the beach dies, because obviously everybody's aging at a rapid, an increased rate. So the dog's dead within hours, and it escapes you. But one of the characters says, "The dog's dead," and another character replies, "But he was just alive." I'm like, I literally, I think I just scratched I literally opened my mouth in shock at the screen. I mean, I've watched Hallmark movies. I'd expect better dialogue from Troll 2. It was just bizarre. It was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And this is like a cinema release from from a director who has directed The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable and Signs. And I'm thinking, what went wrong, man? What went wrong? What are you doing? It's like, it seems to make bad actors out of actors who I mean, isn't the guy from Hereditary in Old? It's the same. Isn't it? It's the son from Hereditary is in Old. Arguably one of the, not in my opinion, but in a lot of people's opinions, one of the best horror films of the 2010s. And I mean, even he's pretty bad in it. I mean, oh my god. Old was terrible. So yeah, this Knock at the Cabin, I know nothing about this movie, but it's dropping in February, and the fact that it's dropping the beginning of February, we're just out of January is a notorious season for dropping bad movies. The film studios tend to drop their shit in the January. Now maybe it's extending into February now, because if they're dropping this movie on the 3rd of February, then I'm not feeling too much confidence for this Shyamalan film, to be fair. I would argue that he hasn't made a good movie since Signs. I think Split was a solid movie, but for me, Signs was his last great movie, and that was 2002. So we're talking 21 years. And a lot of people don't even like Signs. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Shyamalan he's a busted flush at this point. Okay, so Dan says it's based on A Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't actually. I was going to say, yeah. So what's the book about? But don't tell me, because I don't. I'd rather go into blind, because I need to start going to films blind now, because I'm just sick of getting films spoiled by trailers. So it probably won't be great because it's Shyamalan now, and Shyamalan's just gone shit. But if I go into it blind, at least I can maybe hope that it's a decent film. And whose name they're burying, so they're not even acknowledging that he's the guy responsible for it. The visit, the visit, the visit was okay. I had issues. I did have issues. The twist at the end was quite interesting. I quite liked the twist. I mean, it wasn't a major twist. It was kind of believable, but it was just the stuff in the middle. I was never really totally sold on the whole premise. Even though I thought the twist was believable, I was never sold on. I never liked the kids. My God, the girl in it. I was hoping she would get in the oven and just get burnt alive because she was just annoying. Um, Piss says, if your name isn't freaking or bloody, you shouldn't touch the Exorcist. Well spoken. Ben says, old was terrible. Great concept, but bad script and line delivery. Yeah, my God. Jesus Christ. It is a good idea, but it it's like when you watching that film is kind of when you watch a dubbed movie. It it felt dubbed, even though it wasn't dubbed. When you get like when you watch a dubbed movie and it's just like a dead that the lines are delivered in such a dead robotic way that you can't get on board with anything anyone's saying. That's how that film felt. Um, the happening is comedy gold. Mark Wahlberg is and Zoe Deschanel are just shockingly bad in that film. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not saying Mark Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel are like Oscar-winning actors. They're not. But they're okay actors. They're not bad. Somehow Shyamalan manages to take them and turn them into like something you'd see on the horror channel. It's just mind-boggling how he has the ability to take. Is he doing it on purpose? Is this? I'm half expecting like in 10 years' time there to be like a documentary, like a fly on the wall documentary, or like a found footage movie, which gets released where all along he was just trolling everyone. Because I honestly don't understand how he can get away with doing this and nobody like thinking, hang on, mate, you used to be good and now you're doing this. Um, Dan says yes, more good bad films than good, definitely, yeah. So next up, Knock at the Cabin. Anyway, February the 3rd. Yeah, not really. Don't know what to expect. A film dropping on September the 8th. I know Lorne is really looking forward to this one. It's The Nun 2. Again, another sequel that nobody asked for. The Conjuring universe decided in their wisdom to drop a movie in 2023 there to a sequel that nobody liked. Let's face it, nobody liked The Nun. Probably the least popular of like the movies in that franchise. Franchise within a franchise, I suppose you could say. I suppose it's a franchise within a franchise. Yeah, I mean, The Nun was complete and utter dog shit, and they've decided to follow up with another movie, which will probably be, I'm not going to be totally judgmental because if there's one thing the Conjuring universe has done, it's thrown up a few surprises over time. They did drop Annabelle back in like whenever that was 2015, 2016, 2014 maybe. And then they proceeded to make two sequels which were better than the original film. Annabelle Comes Home, I think the prequel, and then obviously they did Annabelle Creation, sorry, which was better than the original. And then they did Annabelle Comes Home, which I thought was the best of the bunch. So maybe The Nun 2 will be an improvement on the original. But I'm struggling to see that, to be fair. Annabelle Comes Home benefited from like that. So it's like it felt like a bit of a fun. It was a fun movie because it felt like Annabelle's kind of like the sort of character the creation that you can have fun with, even though it's a killer evil doll. You can kind of have fun with the whole setup and the whole look of Annabelle as well is kind of like fun and it's enjoyable. The Nun isn't really that sort of movie, and The Nun is quite dark and it doesn't really strike me as the sort of movie where you can do a sequel and do it in a fun sort of like way where it's the nun is not a doll at the end of the day. The nun is like some sort of paranormal entity. So I don't really know what they can do with the nun in a sequel or a prequel or anything to make it a more enjoyable movie than the first one. I just think it's going to be more and more shit. And going forward with the Conjuring universe, I don't really know where it's. See, 2023 is the 10-year anniversary of. I think it's the 10. I'm pretty sure the Conjuring was 2013. So this is the 10-year anniversary of the Conjuring universe, and I'm curious as to know where they intend to go with this because really, if the Nun 2 is what they've got planned for this year and nothing else to mark the 10-year anniversary of this franchise, which has made them a lot of money, to be fair. They've made a lot of money from this franchise. Um, they clearly don't really think that much of the universe anymore because I would have thought they would have something big in the works, maybe. I mean, Conjuring 3 was only a couple of years ago, so certainly not a Conjuring 4, but I thought maybe they might look at doing another Annabelle film or maybe something new altogether. But if the Nun 2 is all they've got, really, my God, I mean, maybe it's time to let this franchise just die a death. I mean, everything's got its shelf life, and I think realistically, I think this could be the end of the Conjuring universe. I mean, the MCU, moving off topic from horror briefly, but everything has a timeline, and the MCU began in 2008. It's been 14 years, and they've just finished up Phase 4, and realistically, I mean, it'll probably drag on for another few years, but I mean, I actually think the age of the superhero movie is dying at least. Not dead, it's dying, and by 2030 it'll be gone. That's just my prediction. And like I say, everything has a shelf life, and I think the Conjuring universe will probably drag on for a couple more years, and then we'll just die a death. And then something new will come along. But yeah, the Nun 2, September 8th. Let me know what you think. Is anybody remotely interested in this film? I actually cannot see it. I just cannot see it. Sean says, didn't know Lon loved the Nun. Oh, he's a massive fan. He's a massive fan of the Nun. Oh, he's not. Sorry. My bad. The Nun was one of the worst horror films to get a theatrical release in my lifetime. Utterly horrendous. Just God, this show. Savoy says, been into horror for nearly 40 years. I take every film as it comes. I thankfully like terrible and great movies. Big Chris says the Nun was atrocious. Has anybody seen what's that new evil supernatural movie that came out at Christmas? Speak for the Devil or something. Is it called Speak for the Devil? Or it's something connected. It's like a religious horror movie. It's got a nun in it. It looks terrible. Oh, it looked really bad. I didn't watch it, but it just gave me bad nun vibes, and I was just like, no, I'm done with bad nun movies for the next 5 years. So I didn't check it out, but it looked terrible. It looked really bad. I gave it 9 out of 5 stars. That's a bad pun, that Chris. Bad pun. Dan says, I was excited when I saw the trailer for that one. Are you talking about the Nun or Pray for the Devil, Dan? The one I've just been talking about, because both are bad Nun films. Next up, we've got releasing in just 4 days' time, or at least in the UK, I think it's released on Friday. Megan, evil AI doll, comes to life. Oh, the Nun. Okay. So yeah, Megan, evil AI doll comes to life. We've not seen that before, have we? Have never seen a movie about an evil AI doll. Child Flake Chucky. So this is dropping January 6th. What a great time to release a horror movie. I can just see this getting forgotten about very quickly. It looks interesting. I mean, I've only watched a teaser trailer back in the summer. I am trying to move away from watching spoilers, so I don't know. I know enough. It's clear what's going to happen. They obviously get this AI doll for the daughter. She becomes friends with she sees what they don't see, and I'm just going to guess that maybe the evil AI Megan doll tries to kill the parents or something. But doesn't try and kill the little girl because, like, it's a bit like it feels very much Chucky in a way. But yeah, I mean, I'm not overly excited about this. I will. I'm not certainly not going to go to the cinema to see it. I'll wait for it to come on streaming. But yeah, I mean, it's probably a very, very inoffensive 6 out of 10 movie. It's not gonna like. It's not. It's not changing. It's not changing this this the horror scene in any way. It's just more of the same. I mean, literally. I mean, it's that's really all I've got to say about the film. I mean, literally, I did take notes before tonight's stream, and I was talking about, I was making notes for like the movies that are up and coming, and I had something to say about most of the films, and I come to this, I was just like, yeah, I'll just mention it, but literally, I mean, it's just going to be like, yeah, Megan, January 3rd or January 6th. That's it. It could be one of the greatest horror movies of all time. I very much doubt it. But I'll wait for the trailers. I'll wait for the reviews to drop. I'm sure it'll be a 45-50% movie on Rotten Tomatoes, although I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes in any way. Certainly not the scores are used by the actual registered reviewers, because they just talk shit. But yeah, Sean says Megan looks crap. Ben says, has anyone seen Benedetta, Sexy in a movie by is that do you mean Paul Verhoeven? I've not seen Benedetta. Savoy says, probably my favorite explanation horror film or exploitation was released in January. Leatherface, Texas Massacre 3. Oh, okay, yeah. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I mean, the fact that got a cinema release, maybe I don't think it got a cinema release in the UK somehow, but if it got a cinema release in the US, then props to the US. Dan says, I have Ben. Okay, so Dan's seen Benedetta. He's got it on 4K. Can't beat Verhoeven. So final movie to talk about in terms of like other releases are dropping this year, obviously, but I've tried to focus on some of the bigger ones, and obviously October 27th, like 4 days before Halloween, is Saw 10. So the Saw franchise is back. It's called Saw X or 10, I'm assuming. So this is right. So here's where I don't follow the Saw franchise in any way. So I checked out after part 3. So I've not seen a Saw movie after part 3. I've not seen Spiral. I've not seen 4 to 9. So the chat's gonna have to fill me in terms of what they know about this film. Is Saw 10 a direct sequel to 9? How does Spiral fit into the whole Saw franchise? Is Spiral part of that universe, like actually part of the traditional timeline, or is it something separate? I'm not entirely sure because I've not seen that either. Is Jigsaw actually dead, or is he coming back to life? I mean, he died at the end of part 3, and I'm aware that like the later films dealt with him, but he wasn't even in them, and he was dead. Is Saw 10 gonna kind of retcon things and bring him back to life? I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Like I say, I'm not a fan of the Saw films, so but I thought I'd mention it because obviously it's probably one of the bigger releases of the year. But like I say, yeah, calling it Saw X basically means it's not a reboot. It is going to be, I'm assuming, a sequel. So yeah, I'll just wait for people in the chat to maybe comment on that. Chess says, I want to see Megan. I'm intrigued. Dan says, Megan isn't anything new for sure. It looks entertaining enough. Sean's hyped for Doom Part 2, as am I. Ben says, it's new. It's no nude nuns with big guns, pretty good. Nun splitation made a comeback. Dan says, not enough nude nuns in that one bed. Savoy says, exploitation even long, and yep, it was banned in the UK, but actually in the States. Sean says, I only watched the first 3 films. Yeah, same as me. And Lorne likes the Saw franchise. Sucker people. Okay. Well, there you have it. I think John Kramer is back. So, yeah. So, okay, that's interesting. John Kramer is back for Saw 10. I mean, how old's Tobin Bell now? Is he like, he looked old in 2004. Like, how old is the guy now? He must be like getting on for like 80 maybe. Like, he must be in his 70s. He's got to be in his 70s, Tobin Bell. Maybe get that film out of him before he drops dead. Yeah, that kind of like covers basically we've got a new, somebody new in chat I've not seen before. Cole Shorts 1. What time does we? What's up, man? What time does it start? I don't know. But nice to see a new person. What time does what start? What time does it start? The stream. We're streaming now. He's always looked old. Lorne says Tone Bell looks like he'll kick Harrison Ford's ass, so there's that. Well, yeah. Oh, Raw. Well, this is it. Yeah, it's not Monday Night Raw. Yeah, well, it's not. I'm not wrestling. This is just the name of the show. I mean, I'm not like going to get a pair of spandex on and start, doing drop kicks on people. This is this is just the name of the show. Maybe I've just yeah. Yeah, so if you like talking about horror movies and shit like that, then welcome aboard. If you come to see me in spandex, like drop kicking Hulk Hogan, then that's not the Monday Night Raw for you. Okay, so on to the next topic of conversation. This is the new NXT Europe launch. So one movie that wasn't mentioned in the obviously 2023 movies dropping, which it's probably gonna, I'm assuming it's gonna drop sometime in 2024, is obviously Terrifier 3. Damon Leone obviously has talked about this. I think I mentioned Terrifier 2 in my honorable mentions for 2022. I mean, I liked it obviously a lot more than the first film. I'm not a massive fan of the franchise. It's only been 2 movies. I know. I liked 2. I think it was way too long though. Didn't like 1. I thought the acting was horrendous. I thought it relied too much on just cheap shocks rather than any sort of like storytelling and plot building. Terrifier 2 certainly introduces like more likable characters and builds character storylines up so you care about them a bit more. But it still wasn't like, it was still like, out of my top 10 movies. But obviously Damon Leone's he's hinted that there's going to be a Terrifier 3. I'm assuming there's going to be a bigger budget for this movie. Terrifier 1 did decent money, so obviously gets a bigger budget. Terrifier 2's done well, box office wise, for what it cost to make. Obviously, I mean, obviously in terms of like, when does Monday Night Raw start on Peacock? I have no idea, Cole. Is Monday Night Raw going to Peacock? Because I don't have Peacock, but if it is, well, that could be something to do with Triple H running WWE now. So anybody who's wrestling fan in the chat, let Cole know. But I had no idea that Peacock had bought the rights to Sean. No, I've not seen a Northman yet, Sean. I know I need to watch. It's somehow escaped my attention. But I do need to check up on the Northman. I'll have to get it watched within the next couple of months. What's up, Griff? What's up, man? Yeah, everyone's raves about the Northman. I still haven't seen it. I definitely need to get it watched. Yeah, so going back to Terrifier, Yes, yes, sure. Yeah. Well, I need to rectify that. Um, yeah. So basically, yeah. So Terrifier 3 going forward. I mean, obviously this isn't going to drop this year, but obviously Damon Leone is he's going to get. I think he's going to probably get some big bucks to make another sequel. He's going to get more money than he got to make two, because obviously two has been, certainly a success in indie circles. It's done like I think it's done a lot better than was predicted. But in terms of going forward with this franchise, a lot of people. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Art the Clown. I like the character to a point, but I know a lot of people like hardcore horror fans love Art the Clown. They love him. Like they think he's like the next big horror icon. And I think you kind of they're kind of right to a point in terms of what we've had going forward in the last 10, 15 years. We've not really had much to go on. If you look back to like the 70s, you had Leatherface and Michael were like the two big icons to come out of that decade. And then in the 80s, obviously you had Jason, Freddy, and like Pinhead. Um, they came like the big three from the 80s. And then in the 90s, like you had obviously Ghostface and to a lesser extent like Candyman. Um, and then in the noughties, there was like, well, there was Jigsaw, even though it was more like the iconic figures, really, the little creepy little thing on the tricycle. But in the noughties, there wasn't really anything bar um to any sort of like that made an impact. Really, it was only sort of a Jigsaw. So in the 2010s, I mean, we had nothing really that making an impact. Um, you certainly can't include Pennywise the Clown from it because he was an established character in a pretty. I don't regard him as anything. Um, I'm talking about like original characters built from scratch. So definitely, he was probably the one character who really stood out, and that was a really, really low budget movie. And obviously, he was in All Hallows Eve from like I think it's like 2014, was it? In a short, and that was even a different actor to the guy's name escapes me who plays Arthur Clown, and they said David Gordon Green. It's something similar to that. But yeah, I mean, so that character kind of started off in All Hallows Eve, moved to Terrifier, and we're only talking really one movie and a short in the whole of the 2010s to gain that sort of iconic status. And I don't think he certainly gained an iconic status amongst like the hardcore horror fans, but and now with Terrifier 2, it's become like an even bigger thing, and he's become like more of an iconic figure. But I still think that he's got a long way to go to gain that true iconic status that Jason, Michael, and Freddy have got. I mean, I don't think he can ever get anywhere near that. I don't think it'll ever happen. I know people like the hardcore fans love Art the Clown, but these movies, the first movie and the second movie, are just way too extreme to ever cross over into the mainstream. And that's the thing. It's like if Damon Leone, if he wants to maybe there's that element now where the third film it becomes a case of sticking to your guns and making it even more graphic and more, disgusting and vile than the last film. At that same time, you're alienating again the normie audience who don't want to see that, but they're the same audience who can elevate Art the Clown to like a level that's not been seen since the 1990s, arguably, or at least the 2000s with Jigsaw. So it's a difficult conundrum for the film studio and obviously Leone. What do they want to do with this character? Because you've got a character there who clearly resonates with a hardcore audience. They must recognize that that character could translate well to a more normal audience, but at that same time, you risk sacrificing the hardcore audience who got him into that position in the first place. So it's an interesting conundrum for them going forward. Like, what do they want to do? Bigger budget, double down on the gore, or bigger budget, make it a bit more family friendly, maybe get more bums on seats in cinemas. and create this, new horror, just like next horror icon. I mean, I'm talking about like an actual horror icon to the level of what we had in the 80s, because nobody can tell me that like anybody can rival Jason and Freddy in the late 80s. I've discussed this either on a stream before or on somebody else's stream. Nobody's ever going to rival Freddy Krueger in like the late 80s in terms of like just pop culture crossover. You're never going to top that, or Jason at the same period. Jason appearing on the Arsenio Hall show. Like, I didn't even get the Arsenio Hall show in the UK, but I know that he was on it because when I was a kid growing up in late 80s, early 90s, I was aware of that shit through magazines and stuff. And Freddie was just, I didn't have to be in America to know that Freddie was a massive cultural icon. I mean, fucking hell, Freddie was just like I think from like 87, 88, 89, 90, like Freddie was just everywhere, man. I mean, my mum, like there's a test for you. If your mum knows who Freddie Krueger is, you know you've crossed over into the mainstream and you know you've touched on something. She didn't know Jason was. That's why I've always used the arguments, and it's maybe it's not a very good gauge in nowadays, as because we've moved forward in time, like 30 years. But back in them days, like how did I know that Freddie was a bigger star culturally than Jason? Because my mum knew Freddie Krueger was. She didn't know who the fuck Jason Voorhees was. And I used it with wrestling as well. It's like my mum knew who Hulk Hogan was. She never knew who Steve Austin was. She had no idea who Stone Cold was. She didn't know who The Rock was. And that's why I always insisted that Hulk Hogan was like the most famous wrestler of all time. It may have changed now because obviously we've moved forward like 20 years and a younger generation will recognize The Rock and Stone Cold, and the parents will be of an age where they remember The Rock and Stone Cold. But when I was growing up, and when I was like in my like a little bit older, like into my 20s and like late 20s, my mum and dad, they recognized Hulk Hogan, but they didn't recognize Steve Austin and The Rock or Triple H. They didn't know the fuck these people were. But I'll always say the Freddy Krueger in the late 80s is the biggest crossover horror icon that we will ever see. I don't think that'll ever be topped. And even in an age now of like social media and whatnot, even though we've got this social media, because everything's so condensed and everything's so spread out all over the place, you'll never like recreate that sort of like that late 80s, early 90s time when everybody was just watching a few TV stations at the same time. So millions and millions of people would be watching like one show. It's not like that anymore. So even though more people have access to more stuff, everybody's just watching lots of different stuff. Before the internet, like, I mean, how many people watch Jason on the Arsenio Hall show? Probably fucking about 30 million people. I don't know. A lot of people. So yeah, I mean, that's just my opinions on Terrifier 3. When it does drop, like I say, it's in a roundabout sort of way about how I think, well, what I think may happen and what I think, I'm not saying what should happen. I honestly couldn't care less about Terrifier 3. If they want to go like down the route of just being like ultra violent and just like saying fuck Hollywood, fuck money, I think I admire that. If they do decide to go down the route of like maybe being a little bit more family friendly and they decide to go down the route of like maybe trying to make money, I mean, I actually don't care because it's not a franchise I'm that bothered about. But I can imagine if I was a fan of like the first two films, I would be probably pretty pissed if they did decide to go like appeal to the normies and just go all like, we're going to cut back on the violence. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Let's just go back into the chat. Yeah, Sean says, "What, Mike? You haven't seen The Northman?" I have not seen The Northman. I've got to see The Northman, apparently. Chessa as well. You're lost long because you're talking about Raw. Believe not Islam Peacock. Ben says, "Do you see Dashcam is the 8th worst movie of all time, not the 8th scariest movie. Dashcam is a fucking shit show of a film. Horrendous film. And this is from the guy who did fucking Host, which is fucking brilliant. Host is amazing, and then he did this. It's like how? It's like he was here, and he came down here. It's just mind-boggling. Big T, I like you even more, lol. Big T says definitely my top 5 last year. Like no, something. I do intend. I'm gonna have to watch that film. I really do need to see it. There's just been a lot to watch, man. I mean, how can I be expected to watch Northman when I need to fit in? What the fuck? What's the what's the new Tubi movie? Terror Train 1 and 2. I mean, I did actually watch Terror Train, the original, the other night for New Year's Eve, with Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's not, it's not a bad movie. If it wasn't for Jamie Lee Curtis, I probably wouldn't give it the time of day as much as I do, because I just, Jamie Lee Curtis, it's peak Jamie Lee Curtis, 1980. It's got David Copperfield doing a magic show for no reason whatsoever. But yeah, I do need to. I mean, how the hell Tubi have managed to knock out 2 Terror Train movies in 6 months is beyond me. I mean, as bad as they probably are, I've not seen them yet. I probably will watch them. How they've managed to knock out 2 films in that time. I don't know. I mean, what did I watch? What did I watch? I watched. It was a double header. I watched New Year's Evil for the first time. I'd never seen New Year's Evil, and it was on YouTube. It was just on YouTube. Someone uploaded it. Really good quality film as well. Good quality picture, and it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good film, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. I mean, it was charismatic killer. It was nice. It made a nice change to watch a film where it wasn't just a guy in a mask. There was a mask in the film, and it's a really creepy looking mask, and he wears it like twice in the movie. It's such a waste. If you've seen the film, it's like he got this really creepy looking mask, and the guy wears it like right at the end of the film. For the rest of the film, he's just putting on like minor disguises, like a wig or a mustache or something. But it's an interesting movie because he's like a really charismatic killer. He's good looking. He charms the ladies, and then he just offs them right at the different points of New Year's Day on different time zones across the United States. So it's kind of like an interesting premise, and like there's not really enough New Year's Eve slasher movies, but I had a good time. It wasn't bad. But yeah, The Mask's underused. That definitely could be put into another horror film because I really like The Mask in that film. Big T says Happy New Year, Dan. Lauren says the Terrifier films are fine, but I just don't see them as genre defining the way you'd expect for something to experience. Yeah, I mean, I agree, Lauren. I do find myself scratching my head a little bit at the love that they get. I almost feel like it's kind of just people have just been felt so neglected for a long time in terms of like hardcore, graphic slasher films, that when this came along, they were just like on board for it. And it is like one of the few like real graphic extreme slasher films that's really crossed over into like, I wouldn't say the mainstream, but it's certainly Art the Clown as a face has kind of like resonated with people, and it's definitely done a lot for the genre in that respect. But yeah, it's just not for me really. I'm like I say, I don't mind. I've got nothing against like the extreme violence in the film. I kind of find it laughable. I don't think. I mean, the infamous bedroom scene in Terrifier 2, where he's like, cuts her arm off, Ben twists her arm, snaps it. He's pouring like salt into the wounds. I just thought it was funny. I was just laughing. I thought this is just I thought it was quite, I thought it was hilarious almost, and there was no like sort of like tension to the scene, and like for me, like terror for me is like I mentioned on the live stream the other night. It's like that scene in X, which it's like it's walking towards an upraised nail with bare feet. It's like the scene in See No Evil with Mia Farrow, a floor full of broken glass, and she's blind and she's walking towards it. That to me is like genuine tension, genuine sort of like, oh, where you just like, oh, I don't want to. I'm covering my eyes now because I really can't bear the thought she's going to stand on broken glass, because it's something like that. I think that probably relates to something that we can all relate to. We can all imagine a scenario where we've stood on broken glass in bare feet or a nail, but I can't really envisage a scenario where I'm getting pinned down by a clown who's snapping my arm backwards and forwards and then pouring salt into my wounds. I can't say I've ever thought that is a logical conclusion to my day. So probably why I just laughed at that scene in Terrified 2. But who knows? I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere is getting tortured by a clown right now, getting their arm ripped off and then getting salt and acid and God knows what poured into them. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe in Russia somewhere. I don't know. Dan says, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Dan. Chucky did. Chucky exploded. Big T says, Peacock was slacking, putting the second season of Chucky up. Yeah, Chucky. Yeah, I kind of need to get back into that. I was up to the point where they did that sort of like nudge, wink, wink episode where it was all kind of like breaking the fourth wall, and I've not revisited it since. I need to get back and just get that watched. Yeah, Hulk Hogan is the most overrated wrestler of all time, but he's also arguably the most famous. I mean, come on. I mean, that look he's got is iconic, but he is a terrible wrestler. I'm not going to lie. Lauren says, I'd argue that Lugosi's Dracula and Carlos Frankenstein monster are more iconic. I mean, I would argue, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying there, Lauren. I mean, I was talking more to like post 70s, really. I mean, I get that Dracula and Frankenstein are definitely more iconic than any other monster. Definitely more iconic than Freddy and Jason. Certainly, my mum and dad know who Dracula and Frankenstein are. I was really referencing more everything post like the 70s. I mean, yeah, Dracula and Frankenstein are the two most iconic horror creations of all time, arguably. The community is desperate to crown a new horror icon. Dan says you'll definitely love the Northman. Big T says Megan is the new face of horror. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Jesus Christ. Dan says totally pointless remake to. I'm not entirely sure what to remake to what though, because it's not Megan, is it? It's fun when you're reading comments and sometimes it's a reply to something that was previous. Not that the OG is Holy Grail, but stick with it. I think you've talked about. He's what Exorcist, Dan, I think, obviously. What's up, Jess? I've been waiting for Chucky season 2 on Peacock as well. I'm beginning to think it's not coming, at least not anytime soon. I mean, you're not missing much, to be fair, Jess. It's not a patch on season 1 so far, in my opinion. Yeah, shout out, Jess. Big T says, I totally get what they were doing by putting each episode on respective USA Network and sci-fi apps to gain attention. But what about the people that are paying the money? Um, Jess is asking if Sean's going to be on a guest on the stream in the community. You'll never see. Sean doesn't do face reveals. Yeah, we'll never see Sean. Only ever in the chat. Oh, he's saying he really hopes so. Oh, Territory remake. Jesus Christ. Chucky season 2 was good. Big T I kind of bogus. Right, I'll probably go live again in another couple of days. I was gonna cover another couple of things. Bloody Disgusting. I've had the best sort of like performances of the year, their best movies of the year. I was gonna kind of like react to them, but that'll probably take another hour. And it's like I'm a big old 90 minutes. It's a nice little time, and it is like it's nearly 1:20 in the UK, and I have got to get up early in the morning. The chat tonight has been absolutely fantastic. Consistently 15, 16 people in the chat is just incredible. The channel's doing. I mean, I'm absolutely delighted with the channel's going. The views to subs ratio is just brilliant. For 154 subscribers, the views on the channel is just amazing. And it's like the live stream the other night, it's got like 200 views. A couple of streams before that, like way up in the 180s. Yeah, I mean, and just it's all thanks to you guys. I really appreciate it. There's always like a hardcore bunch of people here every single week. I just want to say thank you because I didn't really have a chance to say thank you on the last stream. It's obviously end of the year, going to a new year now. So for everyone who supported the channel over the last 12 months, I think it'll be my 2-year anniversary on YouTube in about 3 weeks' time. So yeah, and the way the channel's grown over the last 2 years, it's been a slow but steady process, and it's felt organic as well. Nothing's if that makes sense. It's not like I've suddenly jumped to like 1,000 subs for no reason. I kind of like it'd be nice to have 1,000 subs, but it's I'm not buying subs, if that makes sense. I mean, I know some people on some YouTube channels. I think you can. I don't. You apparently can buy subs. If that's a thing. Apparently, I didn't even know, but I think you can judge by the fact that I'm at 154 subscribers. It means I'm not doing that. So everybody who's a subscriber, apart from obviously maybe if YouTube adds bots for no reason, everybody who is a subscriber is a genuine subscriber. I think the chat emphasizes that by everybody doing what they do. So yeah, Piz, thank you, man. Piz, yeah, if it wasn't for your channel, I wouldn't be here now. Yeah, as I say, 3 years ago now, COVID, beginning of COVID, I first appeared on your channel. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here now. So yeah, I'll always thank you for that. And I will obviously Lorne and Jess and Jay and Corey and a couple of the other guys who were doing streams like sort of late 2020. They kind of give me the push. Well, not literally, but watching them was kind of like the incentive for me to sort of start doing it. And yeah, thanks. Yeah, it means a lot. So for everyone in the chat tonight, much appreciated. As I say, like, subscribe. Yeah, please hit the like button as well. I always forget to say that, but please hit the like button because so often when I'm watching live streams and there'd be like X amount of people in the chat and the likes are less than the people in the chat. So please hit the like button. Please share it on social media if that's your thing. But that's it for now, guys. I will see you in probably Friday night for another stream. But for now, peace. Good night.